From the second the screen goes dark, you feel it. A hush. A heartbeat in shadows. You're waiting for a spark. Then the music flares, a horn blasts, the world turns green, and then suddenly, nothing will ever feel ordinary again. That is the power of the mask.
I think he wants to communicate.
Mask, 1994. It's more than a comedy. It's a defiant, joyous eruption. And now, more than 30 years later, audiences are rediscovering it. Rumor is swirling about what's next, and the mask still laughs at us, daring us to climb inside. You might think a film this old would rest quietly in nostalgia, but The Mask is rising again on streaming charts. Conversations are heating up. Jim Carrey has hinted he might come back, if the idea is right. Diaz has echoed that she would join again, but only if she shares the screen with him. And its director Chuck Russell has publicly reflected on how the world might still belong to the mask. All of these voices decades later whisper the same question: can you bring back lightning? Tonight we travel through memory, ambition, and possibility. We'll walk into the film's creation, peer into its shadows, and stand at the edge of what comes after. Because the mask isn't just a relic, it's an invitation, and that mask still waits. When The Mask burst into theaters in the summer of 1994, it landed like a rocket among whispers and wide eyes. Seen in the marketplace of blockbusters, it looked dangerous. It looked weird. A comic book oddball carried on Jim Carrey's elastic shoulders. But inside those shadows and zany transformations, it hid a vulnerability. A heart still beating. Imagine Stanley Ipkiss, mild-mannered, underconfident, unable to hold a dare, let alone romance. In those early scenes, every glance in a mirror, every bump on the sidewalk, every suppressed desire paints a portrait of isolation. We root for him. We want him to step out. Then he does, leaps into chaos. The mask changes everything. It grants power, permission, fantasy, but at a cost. From the first gummy smile to the final twist, the film dances on the edge of extremes. It lets its oddities roar. Video effects stretch limits. Physics becomes rubber. Rules are broken. And yet, there's a fine line, one that few comedies cross, where laughter meets longing. Where absurdity exposes loneliness. Where hyperbole rebounds on real fears. Fear of rejection, fear of what you hide, fear of being seen. On its release, The Mask wasn't a guaranteed hit. It played with visuals still pushing boundaries, comedy that teetered on guts and silliness, and an actor who had yet to fully become a cinematic icon. But when it hit screens, it detonated. Theaters erupted in laughter. Kids, teens, adults, everyone leaned in. Quips, gags, acrobatics, they became part of daily memory. Smokin' turned into an incantation. Stanley's desperation and transformation echoed a wish we all carry, to be free, loud, unbound, and The Mask delivered. It married cartoon lunacy with emotional draw. That contrast, between explosive visuals and a core of human yearning, is why we still feel it. Yet making that balance wasn't easy. Behind every brilliant effect, every spontaneous improv, lay doubt, constraint, and sheer creative audacity. The filmmakers had to negotiate technical limits, compositing, green screen, time when digital effects were still maturing. They had to protect character in the chase, preserve stakes amid stunts. They wrestled with tone. Too far and it becomes chaotic. Too safe and it becomes bland. Jim Carrey at that moment was the perfect storm. He could stretch, contort, scream, fall, but he could also pause, glance, soften. He could morph into mania, yet carry hesitation behind the eyes. That duality, the man and the mask, is a tension we feel every time the mask plays. Neither did the supporting cast fade into comic blur. Diaz, in her debut, became more than a pretty face. Tina Carlisle is danger wrapped in vulnerability, a muse with her own mystery. Peter Green's Dorian Tyrell becomes a textured villain, ruthless, but also wounded. And the world around them, the club scenes, the swing soundtrack, the jazz energy, the pulsating sets, They all breathe life. The film isn't set in some distant fantasy world. It's exaggerated, yes, but it's rooted somewhere you can taste. Over time, The Mask became more than a hit. It became a language, memes, VHS rewatches, speechless stunts in modern-day social reels. It inspired animators, visual effects artists, storytellers who saw that comedy, spectacle, and human longing need not live in separate boxes. It became a reference point, not because it was perfect, but because it dared. Now, decades on, we find a new generation peering in. The Mask reappears on streaming charts. Younger audiences pause mid-scene and stare. How did they get away with that? How did they bend reality so audaciously? They pause when Carrie's face flickers green, or when Tina steps into the club. They laugh, then they falter. They see that behind the mask is someone fragile. This renewed fascination matters, because it reminds us, great stories don't settle. They echo, and right now the echoes demand, what's next? Carrey has allowed for possibility. If someone had the right idea, he said, he could step back into Stanley's shoes. He said he doesn't do everything, only what calls to him. Diaz, meanwhile, shared she'd return, but only if Carrey is there too. Together, their chemistry, their alignment, could unlock something that transcends simple revival. Chuck Russell, the film's director, has openly reflected on revisiting the franchise. He's not chasing nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. He wants integrity, heart, and new vision, not a remake. He's spoken about exploring a darker edge, respecting the surreal tone but pushing more emotional weight. The Mask, he suggests, is mythology. Its return must feel earned. That energy is electric. It feels live. The film that once roared into life might, if all conditions align, roar again. The stakes are high, the fan memory feverish. Nothing is guaranteed, but the possibility is intoxicating. It's easy to look back at The Mask and see silky nostalgia, but its gravity lies deeper, in hidden fractures and cracks only time reveals. Because no creation is born perfect, and no legacy is carried free of cost. Decades in, Carrey has largely stepped back from acting, exploring painting, spiritual life, quieter paths. He dipped back in briefly to play Dr. Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and when asked, admitted part of the motivation was practical. He joked about money, but he also made clear, it's never just that. He speaks of fulfilling projects, teams he likes, ideas that pull him in. That kind of selectivity matters now more than ever. And yes, he has returned before when it felt right. Diaz, likewise, left the spotlight for years. She's since returned with new projects, more grounded choices. She's spoken lightly but sincerely about what The Mask meant for her career. How unique it was, and how returning would require alignment, not nostalgia alone. Then there's The Ghost of Son of the Mask, 2005. That sequel, without Carrey and grounded in different tone, faltered badly. It's become a caution. You can't just slap the mask on a new face and hope lightning strikes. The brilliance must come from purpose. Any revival must avoid the trap of hollow replication. It must earn its existence. The mask in the story is not merely a prop, it's metaphor. It's unleashed ID. It's temptation. It's what we hide and what we wish to broadcast. The film invites us to question, if you could be unbound, what would you dare? But also, if you lose control, what becomes of the person underneath? The most effective moments in The Mask aren't the flips or the transformations. It's when Stanley hesitates. It's when he fears he might lose Tina. It's when the mask manufactures chaos, but the soul fights to stay grounded. We sense these tensions. And when the film holds them, holding spectacle and soul, it breathes. Let the mask tilt too far one way and it becomes hollow. Tilt too safe and it becomes bland. The original navigated that razor's edge. That's why we still feel it. Now in 2025, The Mask is alive again in ambition. The rumor mills spin. Concept ideas, fan art, viral what-if trailers. Yet nothing confirmed. No studio has signed off. But every open casting whisper, every director's comment, every interview where someone says, if the idea's right, keeps the embers glowing. The memory becomes pressure. The legend demands a worthy sequel. not a lazy facsimile. What's stunning is that after all these years, the mask resists being frozen. It doesn't sit in museums. Instead, it wants to evolve. It wants a rebirth. And that rebirth, if it happens, must remember when we don't want a film about the mask. We want a film for the mask. One that lets us feel again what it means to be both bound and unbound, desperate and alive, masked and seen. So where do we stand now? At the intersection of memory and motion. At the edge of ambition and respect? The journey the mask has taken us on remains alive. Not just a marker in film history, but a pulse in the present. And now, maybe, it steps forward. If the mask ever returns, it cannot merely echo old laughs. It must know weight. It must carry grief, consequence, the fear of repetition. But if done right, it will remind us. That liminal space where your wildest self and your quiet soul collide, that space is the richest. It will let Stanley still tremble. It will let Tina still shine. It will make us ask, who are we under the mask? And so the mask waits, patient, mischievous, eternal. It waits for the right voices, the right idea, the right heart. If that moment ever arrives, we'll feel the skin crawl, the green oil slick across the screen, the laugh that cuts through tension, and the soul breathing underneath.